Hi, I'm Simon Rushton and this is Taxi Chronicles Podcast. On this podcast, we spontaneously interview unsuspecting passengers with their permission, allowing them to share their intimate life stories and concerns. As our slogan states, real riders, real stories. Some riders prefer to be anonymous, while others ask me to tell their story later on. Either way, there are all genuine 5 to 10 minutes stories, so sit back and enjoy this episode. Morning. Yes, another rider, another day, another story. Today we've got a lovely lady here, very beautiful. I actually thought she was a model, but she's a bit short, but she's there still, and she's into science. Actually, I'm messing this up. Let let her explain what she does and then we'll ask her questions. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you too. My name's Sarah Holton and I work in TV. I actually work in science documentary. So what that means is that I'm working on a lot of different shows about space. I've got a background in physics. So anything to do about the universe, about cosmology, the planets, that's the kind of thing that I work on.
That's great. So how did you get into it, and what's a typical day like for you?
Very good questions. So how did I get into it? Well, it probably started out when I was back in school, really, because I don't know, I always liked science, but I wasn't necessarily super interested in it until I saw a series on the BBC with Professor Brian Cox, and it was the Wonders of the Universe series, and I just thought, wow, like I've never thought about space really before, and it kind of opened my eyes really to this whole aspect of science that was really interesting and really kind of creative and cool. So I ended up studying astrophysics at university. And then after a lot of networking and applying a bunch of different times, I got my first job in TV. But what's a typical day look like for me? A lot of work on Google, it has to be said. Lots of finding facts, helping our directors and producers write our scripts, making sure everything that we're going to say on TV is right, basically. So we're not telling you any lies. That's the key.
How do you do the vetting? How do you do the vetting?
The vetting. So fact checking. Yeah, fact checking. So we talk to academics and scientists all the time. It's really exciting part of my job, talking to people who are really at like the cutting edge of their fields. So we have a lot of people that we consult. Again, Google is always a good tool. Reading academic papers, all that kind of thing. That's how we do it.
This is always, because as a podcaster, I get a lot of people who say that's not fact, or we have debates of other podcasters. And in your field, science is forever changing because they're forever finding out new things, apart from things like gravity. So, how do you determine who's a worthy? You could have some prestige lecturers in Oxford or Harvard or what have you, and they're singing different songs about the same thing. How do you determine what to say?
That's actually a really difficult part of what we do, is finding out all of the different theories that there are on different topics, finding out, what has the strongest evidence at the moment, what does the general scientific community think about different theories, because at the end of the day we want to bring brand new stuff to people, and sometimes that means things that theories or new results that are at the cutting edge. So it can be difficult to make sure that what we're representing and what we're telling people about is something that's widely kind of accepted or strongly supported, but it's an extremely important part of the process.
Okay, so it gets very political, in other words.
It can be definitely. I remember I worked on a series called The Planets a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of debate at the time because it was the whole debate around whether Pluto was still a planet, And scientists get very, very passionate about that. There were definitely a few Twitter wars going on at the time. Some name calling, all
really?
of that kind of stuff.
So it got down to
100%.
schoolyard stuff.
Oh,
You
yeah.
stupid dog, you. Your mum looks like...
Exactly. Honestly, when you've got passionate people, it can happen sometimes.
You would say that going to Harvard, wouldn't you? Imagine the kind of insults. Okay, so how did it get resolved?
How did it get resolved? It's still not resolved, has to be said. I think there are some things in science, the key about science is that everyone's looking for the next piece of information that will disprove something, right? So you can only kind of gather as much evidence as you can to support a theory, and at some stage it could always get disproven. So a lot of the time, the story's not quite finished on topics. You never know what could happen in the future.
Okay. So the way you present that is in a neutral way. When that topic about Pluto, you had to present it in some way or another.
Exactly. So while there's a lot of debate around the topic, it has been sort of confirmed now by the sort of international board, I guess, of astronomy. I think it's the International Astronomy Institute. That they made a definition of what a planet is, and unfortunately Pluto does not fall into that definition. So we kind of take that top level and go with that.
It's like going by the World Health.
Exactly, yeah.
Even if they're corrupt, they're still going to go by. Anyway, that's another story. So, what was the definition of a planet? Because I'm sure that was fascinating.
Oh, testing me now. So, the definition of a planet, as I remember it anyway, is something, a body of mass which has enough mass for it to be a sphere, and that it has enough mass to clear its orbit. So that means that when a planet is, making its trip around the sun, for example, it has to have enough gravitational pull such that the rest of its orbit is cleared, whereas Pluto does not have the amount of mass for that. And unfortunately as well, there's another smaller kind of dwarf planet in our solar system, which is a similar size to Pluto. Mm-hmm. So they were kind of saying, look, if this dwarf planet, we're not calling that a planet, then how can we call Pluto a planet? And that's kind of the long and the short of it.
Okay, that's great. My last question before
Mm-hmm.
we end is, what's the impact you want to have on the world?
That's a great question to end on. I think science is incredibly important for everyone, and it improves our lives in so many different ways. And I think it would be great to get lots and lots more young people in science, make it more accessible for people, because we need young brains, young minds, and we need people from all walks of life as well.
Okay, thanks a lot for that.
Thanks very much. Great chatting to you.
Much appreciated.
We hope you liked that episode. Keeping in mind, we never know who we're going to interview. We post twice a day, 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. GMT. Have you ever considered the future economies to invest in? Why not listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories? Considering Africa has the fastest growing economies and population on Earth, and has done for many years, it holds 30% of the world's known natural resources. We publish twice a week, Tuesday with a guest investor, and Fridays talking about investment, politics and history, providing a clear understanding for any potential investor.